Thank you. Welcome back. Ladies and gentlemen, Sapphire, if you don't mind, could you gavel us in?
Do I just hit it?
You just hit it. That's it. Hit it one more time for education. Yes, thank you. We are back here at our Committee on Education, Public Safety, and the Arts, PTO, Parent Stakeholder Roundtable. We had to reset the audio. And we're going to continue with the questions from the panel of colleagues assembled. And Speaker Therese Terlahi. Yeah. Good evening. Okay, so I think what we want to do is we're going to allow the new people who came in to sit to provide testimony, and then we'll do one last round of questions. Biba Betnes? Yes, it is Friday. Yes, ma'am, go ahead, please. Yeah, and if you don't mind, since we're back from recess, could you just again state your name and title for the record?
Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Marquisha Camacho. I am the PTO Vice President at Price Elementary School. So before the break, we were discussing how pouring more money into the system is not necessarily working. But I feel it's not working because there's no consistency. There's no accountability. So we can pour all the money into all these contracts, into all these things, but if there's someone not coming consistently to a school and there's no one to account for that person not coming, then that's where the issues lie. A lot of these things get fixed, like for example, the custodian, that's a great idea I was mentioning, because as of right now, it would be cheaper to replace the school than it would be to repair it. And it should not get to that point. If we had consistent maintenance and consistent repairs to the school to maintain the facility, it shouldn't get to the point like, oh, I'm gonna go break down the school because it's cheaper to build a new school than it is to fix this one. Like you were saying, that shouldn't be the pattern, to just break down a school and build another one. If there was consistency and accountability, I think that would help a lot. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, ma'am. Dr. Green, if you don't mind, before you provide testimony, please identify yourself.
Hi, I am Jakisha Green. I am the IES Vice President, PTO Vice President. I'd like to comment on...
Ma'am, I know, guys, sorry, in Alahan Elementary School.
In Alahan Elementary School. Hey, you guys, you don't know where we're from?
Viva South. Okay.
Well, I'd like to comment on the whole idea of reconstructing everything, right? I get that concept because each individual school has its own unique needs. And the only people that can testify that come from the ground up. And it begins with the students, the teachers, the principals, and then up. But for the most part, the only critical people there are the students, the teachers, and the principals. When we talk about accountability, you're so right. Why should the upper management have accountability to what's going on? I feel all of the community members and stakeholders are the ones that are accountable for what's going on within their personal schools. And with that in mind, if we're going to be allotted a certain amount of money based on population and we want to break down, because of course we have to talk about business and money, the realities of the impact of what's going on with our finances, a lot of us are putting it in the back of our minds, but that's what's hurting us in the long run. So when I think about the concept of reconstructing and looking at who should be accountable for what, it should be the individual schools. Now, with that in mind, of course, we need to have a third party, which should be the district, ensuring that we're using those funds appropriately. There should be more liberty in the idea of identifying what the needs of the schools are and not blanketing and masking or massively providing items that we may need. And the thing about it is, if you give us the time to advocate for ourselves and then you don't follow through with what we're asking for, there's a broken system. Correct me if I'm wrong. Can I get an amen? Right? So by looking at all of this too, it comes back to when I speak of the student should be accountable too. Back in the day, as students, we are accountable for our facilities. Back in the day, we were given duties to make sure that we were a part of the system. Sense of ownership. If there's no ownership or buying in anything, nobody's gonna do it. So we need to shift the dynamics of our island and the perspective that we have and remind ourselves as Indigenous people that we are collective and it does take a village to raise a family. What has happened is that we've been pushing the dollar too much without having a sense of ownership and responsibility to that dollar for everybody that benefits from it, inclusive of the children. Again, because you didn't know where Inarahan was, of course you guys know where Inarahan is, but there is still that sense of community and that understanding that we need to raise us all as one. And we're not isolated in that this is not my problem, this is your problem. And to understand to be fatauta with others, right? And knowing that we need to treat others as we want to be treated. So as a reflection, our teachers, when they stand forward for their students, they think of them as their own children. And it's not isolated to a particular group, no matter what race or outer island they may come from, we are still all one, and it's a community. Sorry, we're hesitant to come up because we're not as vocal, because we like to suppress our problems and deal with it within our own means. But of course, we get educated as we go along, and we know that it's time to speak out in certain elements. But for the most part, we try to do what we can do from our part before we go out sourcing towards others. But yeah, I think the whole thing is the whole shift of dynamics and understanding that it's not really about the money, it's about working within your means and being allotted something and using it to the best of your ability based on the individual schools. And that's the concepts. I went to private school all my life here in Guam from the age of 3rd grade. I get what you're talking about. I went to Catholic schools, and it was all about us being accountable for our school and having that pride. There's a lack of pride, there's too much giving. That's where we're at this point. So accountability has to come back where it starts, where the needs are, and then branch out and be facilitated and managed by the district. I'm kind of curious what you mean by your deconstructing or reconstructing.
Well, one thing I've seen is, DOE Central's grown. There's the assistant to the assistant to the assistant. These are, pretty nice positions, like should aspire to one. But again, I think the focus is we all want our children to have the tools that they need to have a good opportunity in life, whatever, wherever their path may lead them, whatever it is they aspire in their life that they want to do. But we want them to have basic capabilities. We want them to be able to read, do their arithmetic. I don't know about geometry, I struggled through that class, got through it, but I don't know how it faces in my life. But there's certain skill sets we want them to, so that when we're not there, when that time comes and we're no longer there to be able to help them, that they're able to manage their lives well and have a good life. That to me is my one major priority. That's really what I want ultimately. I'm sure every parent wants that for their child. You want to give them that opportunity. You want to ensure that the school system that you're investing them in can provide that. And like I said, I'm glazed over. Even when DOE Central was here, and maybe I'm a little too blunt, but I told her, I'm tired of hearing the story, because we have continued to put, our acting, and I love our acting superintendent. I know education is in her heart. She spent so many years investing from, being a teacher all the way up to principal, and now in her capacity coming back to assist during this time. But DOE's budget has tripled since her and I served together in this legislature. But the end product is not better. As a matter of fact, in some cases, worse. And I went to public school where I never really worried about the gym. I didn't worry about having hand wash soap or, food in the cafeteria. I love being a public school student because we were cool. How about those snobby private kids, But seriously, I love being in public school. And up until I got to George Washington and I looked at the environment at that time, I said, I will not do well here. But that's my personal experience. But we want better for our children. And I just don't, and you're right, I don't see the accountability, because there's who's responsible. Everyone's, well, I can't because I bring it to DOE Central and they don't do anything. And DOE Central sits there and go, well, we don't have enough money. We need to do, you need to give us this, you need to give us that. I'm sorry. But if any one of us, like I said, goes in and runs a school, we will be out there water blasting it, and we're capable of it. I can water blast, I can cut the grass, I can paint, I can scrape. It's not impossible. So when we repeatedly don't hear it happening, that's why I'm saying maybe the system's just too big to be effective. And like you said, maybe everybody doesn't need those crazy fans that don't work, but did you have any input in it? And how much money was spent and wasted? Because when I saw the time when I was down at GSA and I saw all those brand new books that are going to be, surveyed out or thrown away, I'm like, oh my God. How much did each of that cost? But somebody didn't make a smart decision because, oh, that book got phased out or whatever. Then why did we order all of this? And who's responsible for that? And who's responsible for that waste and abuse? Because DOE gets under the umbrella of, oh, it's educating our children, and so we don't really look too well. We don't really look at the details. Oh, because, you know, if you do that, you don't support our children. That's the political nonsense comes back. We don't support our children because we're questioning why things are not getting delivered, you know, to the expectation that we should see. So that's what I mean with regards to, should we break it down?
From my opinion, I think we should. Those individuals that are there in the system that make these decisions as far as what should be purchased, whatnot, maybe satellite them to specific areas or specific regions, and they're there in the front line at the schools. I agree with it.
Thank you, Dr. Green.
If I may, sir, can I just add to what Dr. Green said, just because it's kind of going off of it? I agree 100%. We're here.
Oh, sorry, ma'am. If you could just state your name for the record.
I apologize. My name is Shantae FJ. I am here for Jose Rios. I'm the PASTA president. But where I was going was that I 100% agree with the accountability issue. It was brought up to me that at Jose Rios, the school aides go around daily to check for graffiti and stuff to make sure that it's taken care of before the students see it. Because of course some people seen it, but if we can avoid it getting around, taking pictures, all of that, that's what's done. And I know it's at every school, but what are we doing to stop these kids? We scold them, we give them detention, we suspend them maybe. I'm not even sure how far that goes, that's way beyond me. But the point is it also starts at home. We're all here at parents, so we need to kind of take that responsibility because your kid is continuously having graffiti or breaking the school, the toilet at GW, bus stops, all of that. It kind of becomes disheartening to the school staff, to the teachers, to the administration, where we're just kind of throwing our hands in the air as well, because we're just like, if they don't care, why do we? And I know they feel it from us because they don't realize there's a central office. They don't realize there's the senators. To them, we don't care. As school staff, as teachers, that's our fault that their bathroom has no tissue and whatnot. You know, that's what I would think that the kids are feeling. So I feel like it needs to be a holistic approach, like was mentioned earlier, because we're all responsible. It does take a village, and I'm glad Dr. Green brought that up.
Thank you, Shantae. Ma'am, if you could just identify yourself before your testimony. Thank you.
Sure. My name is Davina Napati, and I'm the PTO president at Ordot Elementary. So, first of all, thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak tonight. As mentioned, my name is Davina Napati, and I am a mother and grandmother of children and grandchildren in the Guam public school system. I have one child who has successfully graduated, and that's one down, 7 more to go. So as you can tell, I'm very vested in the success of the public school system. And I've been an active parent for the past 18 years, with my kids having attended Price Elementary, LBJ, CL Taitano Elementary, Agata Middle School, Ontalon Middle School, Teason High, and GW. So that's 8 schools in the past 18 years. So I believe I have witnessed enough in my time as a parent at all the different campuses that I mentioned to be able to speak on my concerns regarding the agendas on the topic. So the first one was facilities and maintenance. We all are aware of GW's gym. It has been down for the past few years, and you know, I spoke with the principal, and we'd like to have the gym open by next year. But will that happen? And I really sadly don't believe so. There's also the awnings. We're all aware. The awnings are beyond repair. When it's rainy season, the kids are walking through the rain. I mean, you might as well not have them there. What's the use of them? And you know, sending my kids to school with an umbrella, it doesn't cut it. The other thing is broken ACs. We've heard this across the board, right? That there are classrooms that are down. And if we are aware of the 14-point system, and I wasn't made aware of this until just a few days ago, but the AC is necessary to be able to meet that 14 points. Okay, our kids have to be in a controlled environment. Okay, they can't be in a hot, sweaty classroom because we're not providing them the adequate environment needed to learn. and the lawn maintenance. I won't even go into it because we've all put in our share time, I'm sure, of cutting the grass or fundraising for, to be able to make do with what we have. And I believe at Ordot Elementary, we did work hard to be able to get a riding mower. And this was years ago, okay, right when we lost the contract with the, right when the mayor's offices stopped cutting the grass. So we right away worked hard to find a solution. But not all schools were fortunate enough to do that. Academics, we all know that there's a teacher shortage, and a majority of that, I believe, is due to teacher burnout. We know that they are not getting paid enough, sadly, although I feel that they are the heroes in all of this because they are there day in and day out for our kids. They spend more time with my kids than I do. So I really, I'm grateful for that. But we also know that due to the pandemic, a lot of the older teachers retired because of health problems, and they had the scare because of COVID. They didn't want to be exposed to it, or even just the fact that we were going to online learning, and it was hard for them to kick gears, and transition into online learning. So they knew they're close to retirement, and they retired. So we lost a lot of teachers due to that. And what did that do? It just compounded the issue, right? It didn't help any. The outdated learning materials or the materials that are just not used, that's another concern of ours. I grew up going to school in California, so I wasn't raised here. And I recall having textbooks, being able to take them home. They were mine. At the beginning of the year, I signed them out. That's not the case here. For all of my kids, I never see a textbook, not even handouts. So that's an issue. And classroom supplies. I know that I've heard it, and I hear it every year, that teachers are the ones fronting the cost for the materials because what they get is just the bare minimum, right? It's just the bare for maybe the first few months of the school year, but teachers are supplying the hand towels, the hand sanitizer, and that's just the sanitation components, but they're also doing lessons that, they want to have the materials in order to have a lesson for the students, so they're forking the cost for that. So those are my concerns in regards to academics. And for safety, I'm sure we're all aware because we see the news, we see the media outlets, what they put out there, and we know that there's crime, right? We know that our schools are being vandalized, there's thefts, there's break-ins, and the violence, the riots. That's my biggest concern because I do have high school students, and my kids, they are the type that if they see something, they won't just stand by. And I try to tell them, don't be the hero. You don't need to get involved. But they just see things that go on, and they don't want to sit by and not let, not be able to protect their friends or, things of that matter. And that's my biggest concern is because I want my kids to have the voice. I want them to be able to stand up when something's wrong, but at the same time, I feel like we don't have enough, especially in the high school, we don't have enough of the school aids to be able to mitigate these issues. So, as a mom, that's my biggest thing because I did not bring my kids into this world for someone to put hands on them, and at the same time, I don't want it done the other way around. And then the other thing in regards to safety is the structural hazards. So we all know about the falling, or the crying ceiling with the cement falling, and so we don't want our kids getting hurt. I know years ago when I was at LBJ, it was the issue of the playground equipment and having to take it out because they weren't safe. And that's at the elementary level. And at high school, we have the broken gym roof, It's like I said, 18 years, and there's problems wherever we go. So that's just a very general listing, but all in all, those are very big issues, and they're kind of repeats of what we've heard tonight already. And among others that have made their rounds around social media, which I won't have to speak on because they've already been spoken about. So those are my concerns, but I also want to come here tonight to be able to mention my gratitude. So in regards to the facilities and maintenance, Senator Barnett was able to attend our PTO meeting at Ordot Elementary last night, and he really made me feel good when he said our school looked pretty good, for the most part. But that was in a cafeteria with a broken AC, and I really have to give it up to the teachers, the staff, our admin, and also our our one janitor, who I know by name. Everyone knows her, Miss Percy. She is from Lucky Kids, but she's there every day. So I hear you guys complaining about, the janitorial services, but we're blessed. We're blessed that we have this one cleaning lady who shows up every day. There was even a time when we had a trunk or treat. We had a haunted house that we built. The following day, I had to go and break it down, and I'm there by myself, and she comes over and she sees me. She says, on my lunch break, I'll come back and I'll help you break it down. And she doesn't have to do that. That's her lunch break, that's her time, but she was saying, hey, let me come over and help you. So I want to give, tonight, not just talk about the issues, but my gratitude as well, that we don't have that issue at Dot Elementary, but I know at GW there are those issues, right? They don't have working bathrooms. My kids will call me and say, Mom, can you come get me from school? And I'm like, why? And they're like, I need to use the restroom. And, I tell them, try and, do what you can, but if you really need to, then, I'll come get you. You got to go to the nurse's office or whatever. And that's just, that's sad. Another thing is the teachers. I want to really commend the teachers for being there day in and day out, fighting the burnout and fighting the fatigue, and even coming to our PTO meetings because, it's the parent-teacher organization, and, they make the effort. They've been there all day, they go take a break, and then they come back, and they're at my meetings, and I'm there until like 7 o'clock. So, I really commend them for showing up because it shows me that I give you support on the PTO side, and you give us support back by attending our meetings and, keeping me in tune with what's going on in the campus, because I'm not there every day. In regards to safety, I will say that, like I said, I was raised in the States, but I have more confidence sending my kids to school at GDOE than I do sending them to school in California or anywhere in the States. And it's because of the environment. We talk about the issues in the environment, but at the same time, there is the community here, okay? Guam is very different from the States, and so something's working in that aspect, that our kids have a home, and I'm grateful that they do have a school home, somewhere that I know that they're safe at when they go to school every day. So those were those items on the agenda, and then it gets into general concerns. So that's really why I'm here today, because I have attended many budget presentations. I've seen budget proposals from the admin. So every year I host a PTO meeting specifically for budget presentations. So I see the numbers, I know what the principal is asking for, but every year we never get it. I have not seen that we get the budget that we ask for. And I'm not sure if the other members here are aware, but the budget is 90% payroll, right? The rest of that, 10%, and you might look at that and say, wow, too much money is going to the teachers and staff. And we all know that's not true. We all know that they're not overpaid. It's just that the admins are asking for the bare minimum, right? It's just enough to get by. The other 10% is for contractual work, which is for the food services, for pest control, which thank God they're, at least we know that they got someone going there, treating the control, or treating the pest issues. There's also the utilities, so power, water, telephone, and very little for equipment and materials. So that's it, okay? So I see on our side with admin, they present it and they get the input, right? They get the feedback of the stakeholders. They ask, is there anything that you see we need around the schools? And we'll say, yeah, we need cafeteria tables, or we need chalkboards, or we need whiteboards. So we give our input, and it goes on there. But what comes back the following year is what we have to work with. It's not like we can just change things at the last minute. So when the AC goes down, like it did, it's not like the principal can just say, all right, we got to get a new one. Let's just write out a check, because that's not how it works. For those who are not aware. We have to have the budget for it, and if we don't have it in the non-appropriated funds, well, then we got to ask for it. We got to go to the department and see what they can do to make the repairs, and more than likely, it's just temporary fixes. And if we are going to be asking for a new aircon, well, we got to put a request in. It goes through the procurement process, and we all know that that takes forever. We probably won't see it till the next fiscal year or more. And so with that, PTO gets involved, and we're asked to, solicit for in-kind donations or for services to help with the repairs, and so we do what we can. But if we can't find someone to do anything about it, well, then we're stuck. We're stuck just waiting for someone to get help or waiting for the money to show up, because there's only so much we can do, and it gets overwhelming. So I'm here because I'm interested to know in what ways the legislature and all those in powers, including us as parents, because we are in power, we're stakeholders, we have a voice, and our voice matters, and we need to use it to make change, right? And change the circumstances that we're in. So I want to know what we're able to do to assist with the hurdles that we're facing. So number one, how can we work on the issues with these budgets? You know, somewhere along the line, you guys are saying it's increased, right? Or tripled in the last few years. So what is going on? You know, like I'm from the bottom, I'm a parent, and I know what the principal's putting in, and you know, it goes up, and then I see what you guys send down. Where did it go? It's got lost somewhere in the middle. So we got to figure that out. And number two, the procurement process. I mean, I know it's not that it's unbearable. There are solutions, or you know, it works, but it just takes a long time. So when we do have that kink in the system where the procurement process is the issue, what are ways we can go, not go around it, but what are ways we can find as viable options in the meantime? And lastly, what ways can we come together? And that's everyone here, because I don't want to see the finger pointing or the shifting of responsibilities, because it has not solved any of the problems. Like I said, 18 years, and I'm still seeing the same problems. There's obviously something that needs to be done, and I believe that we can all agree here tonight. I heard it. We need to do breakdown of the system. I don't think we need to. The system's already broken. It's already broken. We just got to fix it. We got to figure out a way to obviously dismantle it and figure out a way to get things to work. And so we are the role models to our future generation. So I hope that we can come together and prove to them and show them that there are resolutions to the problems, so that they can use what we are able to put together as foundations and building blocks for how they continue to make Guam better. So thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Appreciate your testimony. We're going to finish up the testimony, and then we'll come back. I know you did have some questions. Ma'am? Viva Betness!
Viva!
Buenas
I didn't want
noches.
to be pinched today, so I wore this.
Oh,
with
yeah.
my green.
Yep. I'm green. I'm new at this. Okay,
right.
go ahead and say
Good
your name for the
evening.
record, ma'am.
Oh, good evening, everyone. My name is Malia Castro. I am a PTO member of MU Lujan. I have 3 children. One in middle school at Inalahan Middle School, and my baby is a first grader at MU Lujan. My high schooler goes to Career Tech, so he graduated from Inalahan Middle School, but now he is in Career Tech. Our concerns at MU is the same as every PTO member here. Security cameras, break-ins, thefts. We have teachers that take home their personal belongings, that don't want to leave anything in their classrooms because they might get breaked in. One of the things we're going for this year is security cameras. But the problem with that is, even if with a security camera, we still don't have people that respond in a timely manner. We live all the way down in Jotnya, so it's hard for them to get from Sinahanya to Jotnya to respond. By that time, whoever took whatever, broke into whatever, is gone. We've been lucky enough to not have things messed up or graffitied. The classrooms is just ruffled through, so we don't know if it's students or if it's adults. Our admin does go drive by every night to try and make sure that, things are okay. One of the things we're thinking of is maybe getting because they have a security system at the school, maybe we can branch it out to see if they could supply us with someone to respond quicker or to monitor quicker. maybe we could work that into a plan kind of thing. So far as parent-wise, our school at MU is really good. Recently, we've had supply shortages like everyone. We're waiting for procurement to come through like everyone else. We wanted to do a fundraiser and ask other parents to donate, but we got deadpanned on that because somebody upstairs said, no, don't do it. But we want to proceed with it, but we can't, I guess, publicize about it. So that's one of the things. There's no transparency, no communication between headquarters and us. Previous GDOE headquarters were so good about being very transparent and telling us what was going on during the pandemic, everything. But now it's falling through a little bit. I did not grow up here. I am not from Guam. Problems here is the same as where I'm from in Hawaii. So I do have that I love the community. My kids are out-of-district kids. We fell in love with MU when my first two went to school there. And I go every year to make sure they're enrolled. And I go every day to drop them to school to make sure, or drop them to the bus stop to make sure that they go to school. I live in Barragata, so I go through Antalan. They do have cones in the crosswalks, which is very good because people slow down more than they did before. So that's their option. My high schooler, academic-wise, he wanted to go to Career Tech, and we let him do that because they academically, they're taking a new outlook. I want my children to be able to give back to the community when they come out of high school. So they're like a trades academy, and I really like their thinking on the new age. So in Alaha Middle School, I love that school too. Out of district for that as well. My 8th grader is growing out of that school, but she goes to school every day. I love the community there. The teachers are awesome. All the teachers are awesome. I haven't tried the central and northern schools, but they all work so hard. The admin and the teachers. That's the one things that kept me in the schools that they attend. I also have a sister-in-law that works for Lucky Supplies, but she is also employed with GDOE at her school. So she takes pride in cleaning her school because it's hers. So she double jobs and she cleans up the school. So she takes pride in it. There's only 3 of them, and there's like 30 classrooms, sometimes even the bathrooms and stuff, so it's very hard. They kind of have to do it every day. She at least spends 3 to 4 hours right after school. She doesn't get home till 7. So it's hard for 3 of them to clean, but they do it. They do it for their schools. Yes, that's it.
Thank you, Malia. Jotting their rules.
Yeah.
Hey. All right, sir, if you don't mind, you're going to be our last testimony for the evening, then we're going to turn it over for questions. Please state your name for the record.
All right, Hafid, good evening, senators and colleagues on the PTO. About a week and a half, I thought I was going to be taking a break from DOE, but I show up to a PTO meeting and I get elected as the president of Agata Johnson Middle School PTO. I have a child that also attends Ora Chalapago Elementary and Tizen. So on the Tizen side, I was actually volunteered to speak on behalf of Tizen as well from President Dimson Nicholas. I try to make it a point to attend all the PTO meetings, both my wife and I. My wife is also a teacher. She's been teaching for 23 years in the public school system. And I think out of probably on this table, I probably have a unique perspective because I sat on the other side of the policy side, and sometimes it's hard to sit back and with all the knowledge that I have with respect to what the department has been doing. And I think what it really boils down to is the communication, both from the top down to the bottom. And so, Senator, when on the campaign trail we met, and I appreciate you highlighting a lot of the issues and bringing people together, because I think that's something that is very important. I recall when I first started, my 19-year-old went to Agani Heights Elementary School. There was a PTO Congress. And we had an opportunity to sit down all together with all the PTOs and then get the common theme, the common thread was going in the schools. And so obviously the facilities is a main issue. And I'm pretty sure, I don't know if you guys recall, I think it was Dr. Robert Underwood in his term as congressman got the Army Corps of Engineers to do a whole assessment on all the school system. And at the time it was called the deferred maintenance costs. And at that time it was about $100 million to fix all the schools, including Simon Sanchez. Fast forward to 2022, when on the other hat that I was wearing, I was on the Department of Education board. We passed the facilities master plan. And this facilities master plan was so comprehensive because each of the schools, the mayors, business community had an opportunity. I believe the legislature also had an opportunity to add to the conversation about the state of our facilities. The difference between then, when Dr. Underwood had the Army Corps of Engineers do it versus what we have now, was we had a kind of a windfall from Uncle Sam, the federal government, with the recovery funds. And so I do know, if I recall correctly, there's about maybe $80–90 million that's set aside for CIP capital improvement projects. And I want to thank Senator Sabina and yourself, Chris. I think you guys proffered a bill to basically help out with the procurement process in terms of trying to get, speed up if there's any issues that may hinder the actual procurement of services and goods. One of the things too, I think in our economy and the scale of things, if the cost to do construction, to change and to do all these things, to bid it on, that's assuming that people are gonna bid to fix the bathrooms and to fix the stuff that we're talking about here today. I think that's some of the challenges we as a community, I mean, just to build a home today is astronomical. And so there's a fine balance between that and a lot of the things. So from my perspective as the PTO president at Agata Johnson Middle School, I just got into the mix of things. Of course, the cleaning of the facility is kind of the general theme. But Agata Johnson was built like 57 years ago. 57 years ago. You walk into that school, and actually had an opportunity to meet with the principal today with the 8th grade teachers, and I was looking at her office, I saw like pipes, surface pipes, that, usually the electrical is embedded, but I think over the years they just say, hey, the cheapest and best way instead of fixing the problem was to add, pipes out. And so it doesn't look very professional in my opinion, but at the end of the day, part of the procurement problem as I see it is we often go to the lowest bidder. And it's a great point that she put, it's the less amount that they can put out and high yield basically in terms of their bids, right? And so I think that's some of the issues we're faced with. We know things need to get fixed, but the cost, and then how do you free up the resources to get there? In terms of accountability, and I think this is where, we have an elected board, we have an elected legislature, we have an elected governor. I think that's where, in terms of our priorities, education, and Senator Brown's absolutely right. We get the lion's share of the budget. And how we formulate that budget is from the 14 points. And that was a law that was passed by Senator Kalitsky many years ago. And it clearly highlights certain expectations that the people of Guam have for the Department of Education. And it's very specific in it. And in that, I know, and we're talking about the budget from the schools, how it's formulated and it gets transferred up to the board. And then the board then approves that budget, submits it down to the legislature. And usually they say it's an astronomical number. We're like at $300 million. And then when we get the appropriation, and I tell my students this, the budget is a planning document. It's based on the revenues that we're gonna get. And if those revenue streams don't come through, like the territorial facilities fund that's collected from a certain things, and if that's shorted on that side, what happens to the contractual services that we have to pay that's outside? So 10% of a $222 million budget is basically $20 million to pay for operational costs. And so, I think as a community, we've kicked the can down the road so long that it's come to this where looking at the facilities, looking at the aging facilities, and then also the student population, We noticed up in the north, for instance, we see a lot of affordable housing that's being built up in the north. So you see a lot of migration going up to the north for affordable housing and jobs, and then you go to the schools towards the south and you see small populations. And if you recall, Umatic was on the, Sanchez Elementary School, I believe it was at the time. The board made a decision based on a report to shut that school down. And these are community schools. This is where their kids live and they grow. And, as people go from place to place, now you're going to have a compression issue in some of these schools that are going to be overpopulated. Case in point, George Washington High School was super overly populated. They had to open Teason High School. And so, as a community, we have to basically kind of put this thing all into perspective. The Department of Education, I know this for a fact, has a facilities master plan, has about $90 million. And I think the first step, that bill to assist the department in trying to procure the services based on that plan. In addition to that, I think that is really important is that we really take a look at some of the suggestions that was made here tonight. I know when the mayors had control of the grass cutting at the schools, even they had problems with some of the vendors. I know right now, and I'm pretty sure all the PTOs, we all have contractual agreements for uniforms, right? So we have the vendors come out, and we never have problems with we hound the vendors and give us the best deal for our kids to get their uniforms, their school uniforms. I'm even willing to lay that on the table, that maybe perhaps, I think what is that, $400,000 appropriation for grass cutting, divvy it up to the schools and let the PTOs be the one to procure and let us be the one to handle that at that level. I don't think we want any more work on our plates, but if the parents are already doing it, I know I jump on the lawnmower every now and then at Agata Johnson Middle School and GW, and we see these community folks, we partner with the military, and we get people. People want to help out the Department of Education. And so in terms of the Agata Johnson Middle School, it's not unique to what was discussed here tonight. There are successes, though, in our school system. Every day, the gates are open, the school is open, and it's ready to perform the duties. And, all things considered, maybe it's not the best at this point, but we can only go up. For Teason High, I'm very proud of what's going on there with the administration. Obviously, it's a lease school. So if you look at the lease back agreements, they actually tie in the preventative maintenance costs into it, And so that's why you hardly hear any challenges with their facilities, especially because the landlords basically are the ones that say, hey, we need to fix all these things, and they have access to those resources. And so it all comes down to, look at this government facility. Even this building, it was built 70 years ago. I look at the light, I was just flickering, and you got a chip paint there, you know what I mean? But it all comes down to preventative maintenance. And if we don't take care of it now, it's going to cost us more in the future. And so, and I point that out for a fact that our aging facilities in the government, and it's not just the Department of Education, but in this particular case, the budget and everything that's tied to fixing or helping to accommodate and fix the Department of Education, it's really on the shoulders of the parents. There's other issues that we're faced with. I remember you guys seeing all the video of the kid at George Washington High School taking a rock and just bashing a toilet. How do you recover costs from that when they can't even afford to, whatever that process? Vandalism is a big one. It puts us a step back with already the limited resources we have. And frankly speaking, if you look at our maintenance folks, the amount of employees they had many years ago versus now has significantly dwindled. And then you tack onto that all the other requirements in the law. You have to be certified in the, procurement rules. You have to be certified to do all that stuff. And so it's hard to get some technical people that are able to write these scopes of work and to get them out into the community. And so I understand the challenges. I'm wearing a different hat now. I'm game to help out and just work to help improve the lives of our children that come through the Department of Education. And one of the things that I hope that the legislature, one of the things I did before we left the board, we started this thing called the Data Village, GOSDEV, and it's basically to collect data, and it's going to allow the board really of education to see these snapshots of what's going on with the air conditionings at all the different schools. And that's going to help drive some of the policy issues. In addition to that, what we did differently, just for everybody's information, is we tied the superintendent's evaluation now to the strategic plan, which encompasses the facilities master plan. In the past, it wasn't. It was based on the law, and that's why people were saying, you know, it's a glowing, evaluation of the superintendent, but it was based on the law, you know, based on the 17 GCA, the duties and responsibilities of the. So what the board did was they took it and said, okay, let's take apart what are the priorities of our Department of Education, academics, the facilities, you know, thinking long term, and so we tied that all together into the evaluation of the new superintendent. So hopefully, it'll force the issue at that level to handle the issues down at the school level. And so now that I'm on this side of the table, yeah, we have to make phone calls every now and then. The latest one at August Johnston Middle School is the cleaners are not showing up. And so the principal went. She had to borrow tissue from another school. She went and she purchased, I think, 10 brooms or 11 brooms. We engaged with my PTO. We just got assembled a week and a half ago. We're already planning to water blast the school. We're working with organizations to cut the grass. And we're just trying to mobilize people to come in and to kind of get the school back up to par. And then from there, develop a plan so that we don't go backwards and that we can kind of continue forward. So with that, I thank you for allowing me to give my testimony and my perspective. I really appreciate the people who walk around this table because, you know, they acknowledge the issues that the department face, but they're here. And they're here and they're serving. Now we're citizen volunteers, and we're advocates for the school kids, and we're advocates even for the employees, because oftentimes our employees get beat up. Whenever you hear bad, negative press coming out about the Department of Education, sometimes, you know, you have to wonder how are people doing mentally in terms of mental health and stuff like that. We just came through a pandemic, and the Department of Education had to pivot and change its mode of learning. And so there's a lot to be said, to be commended for it. But I think with all this discussion that's around the table, we need to package this thing together, and we need to solve this as a community. And I'm willing to help as best I can.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mendiola, and I agree there are a lot of successes that we can celebrate. Unfortunately, you don't need to fix successes, and that's why so many of the problems are dominating our conversation. Speaker Therese Terlai.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, for having this hearing and inviting the parents. I think if you take home anything, well, there's two things I really want you to take home, but the first is that what you are doing in spending your time to help the schools and also to come here tonight and testify for us, please don't think you wasted your time if you don't see something immediately, but we are going to try our best to change things immediately. I think that's, I hear you, because even us, some of us ran because we were parents at GW too. We were attending board meetings with lots of hope that they were going to fix the school. We were active in the PTOs, all of it, and it's really a huge bureaucracy, the Department of Education, but it's unfortunately suffers the same as the whole government of Guam, right? So we're trying to balance money, we're trying to balance community-based, right? We're trying to balance efficiencies of procurement by making them central, right? And that they would be regular across the board, supposedly well-trained people doing procurement, so it's faster, it's more efficient, you get all the toilet paper as opposed to one person has to get toilet paper than the other one, like efficient, right? It was supposed to be. But for some reason, yeah, we're discovering it's just not. And same thing, I guess, is happening now with the contracts. But what I want to encourage you, so we've been having several hearings, and we did have the acting superintendent to come in regarding facilities in particular, and we had public health. And so I was very encouraged that they've done huge shifts very quickly, or at least this acting superintendent did, and we've seen some improvements over the years, but I think this is the term, I'm going to be optimistic, where things are going to shift very quickly. Everybody's on the same page, and I want to I don't know, one thing I've learned, so I've been a senator for 6 years, and before that, you know, I told you that I was doing all the parent stuff, but it's, you really have to be heard. You have to use your voice. It's absolutely true. Because even if you do it today, it's just like what's happening at the schools. They're sending it down central, and then, you know, hopefully the teachers, we want them to get back to teaching. We want the principals to get back to, you know, administering these schools, not to worry about what's happening downtown. We're trying to get that off of your plates. But unfortunately, yeah, we're just seeing things that are not exactly working like that, like you said. But I was optimistic when I heard the superintendent. So the government's famous for doing lots of lists. So we've passed law after law trying to fix many of these huge things with the schools. Lists of facilities and amounts that they needed for improvement. Lists of which districts need more schools, right? Lists of which types of things should be handled in the schools versus which types of procurement should be handled school-wide, DOE-wide. So I'm hoping with this acting superintendent that we're gonna get some very clear lists before she leaves, and then for the new superintendent to really finish implementing. But in the meantime, as you said, I think everybody's working across the board, but the parents really keep vocal. And the budget process, I'm glad you brought that up, because that was the first thing I noticed when I was a senator during the DOE budgets, that parents didn't really come, and principals were not allowed to speak, or they didn't speak. They would come to the budget sometimes and sit, and I always ask, you know, how come this is not a school-based budget presentation, right? Like, show us, we're taking care of GW, we're taking care of everything they wanted for Inalahan, and we're taking care, like that. But, yeah, the appropriations chair over the years, yeah, we talk a lot about the central DOE. If you calculate the cost per student, right, so we're supposed to be doing cost per student, that's how charter schools get their money, it's per student cost, but you know that the public schools are not getting that at all, not even close. That's really a big issue for me. I think we need to change our formula for our GDOE main schools, because the students are not getting the same amounts, right? And so we need to have a formula for central, and then get that other stuff. And old schools suck up the money a lot too, right? So lots of things, but please don't be discouraged, because I do see change with unfortunately, DOE is one of these places where the people change, right? And it's really very hard to hold them accountable, but I think we're finding some ways to do this now. I'm very optimistic about that. So, although I'm not we're also finding issues between the board and the superintendent, whose duty is what, you know, and our hands are tied on some things. Governor said her hands are tied, and then the board came in here the other day and told us their hands are tied and they can't touch the expenditures. And we were like, what are you talking about, right? So hopefully we're gonna settle all of this once and for all. But yeah, when it, you know, I like the way you brought in all of the different things in schools, the academics, of course, the additional programs that we need, that we don't have, and we should have for our children, but I think we're focusing a lot in the last few months on facilities, right? Because of it seems like the super urgent thing is facilities. Maybe everything is super, I take it back. I know everything is super urgent, but we're focusing on facilities, and I think we're gonna get some things done. So in addition to public health, the superintendent, the chairperson's efforts. So the chairperson earlier, I think, and your parents and your principals, of course, they're very excellent. I sent my kids to the public school because they have really good teachers, and the principals were very good, I thought. And and they always had a common sense approach and a common sense answers to fix these things, but it was very frustrating. So anyways, hopefully we're all on the same page. So the chair sent earlier a request for an emergency session to take care of a few items at least that we can right away for the DOE, including a procurement that Senator Sabina and Senator Barnett worked on, some funding that Senator Chris Duenas also trying to get over there, additional funding, and the sanitation rules so that we can get those lined up. Maybe they're not going to be changed immediately to be more realistic, as you've described, but they will be at least an immediate goal, as opposed to a future goal. We're changing it to be immediate with the other bill. So at the very least, and so the last thing the superintendent told us was that she needs to hire a lot more people. See, and that just takes money, again, outside of the school system, puts it into central, but we do agree with her that we do need to hire those people. Those are maintenance people, and to rebuild back the DOE maintenance so that they can be more on the ground. And and she said she was reviewing the contract. She found she's trying to implement accountability in the contracts. So I felt comfortable that she had a lot of the knowledge that you guys talked about tonight. So she's aware of those, and I was very happy about that. So hopefully those contracts will become more accountable, and if not, then change that system altogether. But so hopefully, yeah, please continue to monitor what the discussions are and who is saying that, because it's just like the budgets. I just don't agree that sometimes the central and then the schools are on the same page, or that the formulas are going to get you the same results. So we really do need to monitor that better. There was a proposal last term. One of the senators proposed more school-based budgeting, which I'm a proponent of, but when the principals, I think at that time, then came back down and said, no, they didn't want it anymore. And we're worried that there's pressure. And so this is where I think, I'm going to talk frankly, I think parents can really, really help to take. Principals are pressured because there's some things that Central can do with principals, move them around, do other things. And so I think your parents can really back up the principals, the schools, and be very vocal. And then hopefully, for me, that's how we prevent those things, right? We just have to be vocal. So, yeah, I want the principals to be huge advocates for the schools. I think they know the most. They should be the advocates, and they shouldn't, I don't want them to spend their time following up with DOE, but I want a system where they just have to tell us, this has been sitting there for 20 days or 10 days, and then something kicks in, right? Because that's just not acceptable for a school where we've got all of our children. So hopefully, we're going to take care of at least those provisions in the emergency session with the help of my colleagues, or if they all agree, right? So we're going to discuss those things. I hope that we can move on those things and that we can take care of the other stuff that the superintendent brought up, including the maintenance people, bringing them in, filling positions that are, again, like the whole government. We can't fill engineers. We can't get enough of teachers even, right? I mean, all of it. So again, thank you to all of you parents. Your role is huge. Your goals are great. Don't go down. Yeah, keep those high. And don't ever, please keep talking. Please, please, please. Yeah, please keep vocal. And again, I'm happy that the chair invited you here so early on in the term. I think this is perfectly appropriate, particularly with the conditions of the schools that we're seeing right now. So hopefully we're going to solve some of these things. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for granting my request for an emergency session.
Oh, yeah, so that's Monday, March 20 at 2 PM.
Thank you.
We're going to go in for some of those things.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and I wanted to address this early in the term because I know it's a huge challenge. It's a huge undertaking, right? Many have said it's difficult. I don't think it's impossible, but I wanted to do it early so that we made sure we had enough time. You know, I mean, I don't know if I'm going to run another term, if I'm going to be here after this term expires. So we've got a lot of work to do, and that's why we're getting to it now. So, Senator Tello-Taitagui?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to try and make this short. We've been here since 2 o'clock, and I tell you, there's no other place I'd rather be than to listening to the PTO coming here and testifying, and the courage that you brought forward to do this, because sometimes, you know, it could, especially those who are a teacher as well, and then being a PTO, it takes a lot of courage, and I appreciate it. We hear everything that you were saying, and Speaker said most of it. Stay strong. If you don't speak up, nothing will happen. If you do, you have a chance. So continue to encourage other parents, you know, not just in the PTO, but other parents to come forward. It's very important. With this emergency session coming up, your emails sending to senators to support these 3 bills that are going to be on the agenda, that's what's needed. That's what's going to help those senators who are not here today, not able to be here, to vote on these bills. To start, we need to do something drastic, and one of these bills are very drastic. But how long, you know, we've been waiting for forever. It's time to bring in the drama, to get them to move. My biggest concern, Ms. Paulino from Estumbo right now, is how are we going to address when it expires in 5 years? That's not too long from now. I mean, I was waiting for those newer schools to be here, and then I thought, no, why would they be here? They have a maintenance, you know, agreement, and it's being adhered to. However, you're here today, I thank you, and that was a good thing that you brought up in 5 years. So please start looking at addressing that and how you're going to continue on, because I think someone mentioned earlier, Mr. Cruz, I think you mentioned it, that if you don't take care of the building and it's going to break down sooner, it's going to be harder to address. I think it might have been you, or, you know, I've been here since 2 o'clock, so trying to remember. I'm hungry, but but I think, yeah, they all said it. You know, taking care of a brand new building will last a whole lot longer, you know, if you just maintain it. So please look into that. I just really, you know, just so appreciate you guys being here. And if you can, I know probably our oversight chair is maybe have asked you for the reports. Chris, thank you. Thank you for, this is Chris Remington from, yes, right? Yeah, okay. Thank you so much for this report and these pictures. You know, this goes home with me and goes into my file, so when we start addressing this on session, I'm able to show our other colleagues what's happening. And I encourage all the other PTO members to do the same. Provide us, you know, a copy like this, take pictures, so that when we go on the floor, we can actually revert to this and explain, this is why we're here today, and this is why the bill needs to pass. So testimonies are very important. Please tell everyone. This Monday, so over the weekend, you have homework, okay? No homework on Friday, okay. But again, thank you for your courage and so much for you're doing for our schools. Thank you. God bless you guys. Thanks.
You forgot to say.
Create a great weekend and send in your testimony. Is that the one?
That's all right. Thank you, Senator Tidy.
Senator
Okay. Paris?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for hosting this roundtable. I think it's so critical, and it's great to see all the parents and teachers here. I think it takes a lot of guts to do this. And I think what it goes to show is that you guys are empowered, but working with a very disempowering system. And so I think what our job is to make sure that we can empower you or empower this, change the system so that you can continue to be empowered. We really want to amplify your efforts and your contributions. You know, I was a teacher myself, so I've seen the front lines. And I was very committed when I became a senator to change the procurement system. And so in these past 2 terms and now this 3rd term, I've been dutifully working on it. And so now we have this bill coming up on Monday to address some of these concerns. But just to let you know, procurement is very multi-factored. It's a multiple there's layers of things that you have to change, from having qualified personnel. So I was aghast when we only had 2 procurement professionals in the DOE system, the whole DOE system. And so when we talk about bottlenecks, we really need to prioritize those personnel. And I'm really happy to hear that the acting superintendent is prioritizing that now. So that's one issue. Also, I've heard from the AG's office, they're going to assist. So that's going to help a lot. So we have things aligning right now in procurement. So we're hoping that a lot of these changes take place. The other thing with the air conditions, so one of the big problems was they were hiring maintenance people that were not the people that did not match up with the product itself. So what it did, it voided the warranty. And so that's why we're seeing a wholesale failure of the air conditioned systems. And that's I think one of the issues. And so now that we know that, hopefully we can correct that moving on. And of course, GPA, they, with their assistance, they're developing the scopes of work to address all of these widespread issues. And so there is change coming, and we're going to basically monitor that. The one thing I want to add is, so I did get a text from a grandparent. And one of the issues that her granddaughter is facing is bullying. And it's being, so the thing is that the administration is trying to address it. They brought in the parents. It's still happening. And so this is one issue that we really need to, I think, maybe have a separate roundtable on, is the bullying issue. Another thing that was mentioned, I want to highlight, Ms. Paulino, thank you for your testimony too as well. And, the issue about proficiency, that's something as a teacher, as a former teacher, that's something I really want to address. So that's another roundtable I think we need to implement, because I do have a lot of ideas as well, and very much in line with what you were talking about. So we need another one. I don't want to delay this roundtable right now, everybody. It's a Friday night, but I really appreciate everybody's time here, and we are going to work hard. We're going to work harder. But the one thing I want to add, perhaps, too, is the accountability. So I think that's one of the issues with this system as being disempowering. There's no accountability. So what happens at the school level, when there's no supplies, the teacher buys it, or somebody at that school buys it. That's not accountability. And so maybe perhaps we can look at solutions for that as far as making the system more accountable. And perhaps if one of, I was thinking, what if we can integrate the PTO as auditors of the school, so that way when the audit comes up, they have to fix it. So in that way, it's not just, between you and within your own PTO, but now it must be done. So, I mean, I definitely would like to sit down with you and work out more solutions. So thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Perez. Speaker Talai, you wanted to close?
Very quick, I wanted to bring up, Senator Perez, with the procurement. So yeah, procurement really is a big issue for what all of you guys are facing. But I just wanted to talk about the new schools versus the old schools. So the new schools, a lot of them were built when we had no cash, right, the government. And so we had to do this lease back financing thing where the developers were the ones who got the financing for it, got the cash, and we're paying them back now for it. But it's really the most expensive way to build. It's not like what they used to do, where they would just cash it down or go get a bond and cash it down. And I think they're even higher than the bonds were. But it was just so attractive because it's fast, and then we get maintenance added in on there, but they're very, very expensive. So now we're talking about, going back to maintenance personnel in the schools, and I'm sure that that shifted over the years because they felt, maybe they thought they weren't always effective, right? So we really have to have a balance, and I think accountability really is the big thing. We want value and we want accountability, and I think both of those we need in order to get each other. Thank you, yeah.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Senator Blas?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and once again, thank you very much. But I think another thing that we probably need to have a conversation on, okay? I applaud all of you for taking the time to be here. I applaud all of you for all the work that you do in the schools. You know, not just as educators or employees of the school, but as teachers. But I think also one of the things that we need to be able to talk to, maybe not in this forum, but in another forum, another area, is some of the frustrations you had. Why are you always the ones of the hundreds of parents that have kids in the schools that are always the ones that are doing these things? What can we do to encourage parents to take more participation with the education of their children? Okay? So I just leave you with that thought, and maybe something that we can think about so that we can talk about it a little bit more. Fortunately, we can't legislate morality, but you sure as hell can enforce it in the schools. Okay? Well, have a great weekend. Enjoy it. Okay? And thank you very much. You've helped us tremendously. And to that young lady right there, thank you, and keep it up. Okay, baby? All right. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Senator Blas. Senator Brown?
Hey, this is the one night of the week I don't have homework. So I know I want to go home and enjoy it and live it up because, you know, come Monday, we're back to the grind. But thank all of you. I mean, I think this continued dialogue, and Mr. Chair, I don't doubt you will continue to stay on top of this. We need to see some systemic changes in how our educational system operates. And like I said, I'm open to restructuring if that's what it takes to get what we need and ensure that the dollar that we're investing in education, that every dollar that's spent in education is getting into the classroom, which is where it should be. You know, building the empire, if at the end of the day our mission is not being met, then we're not accomplishing it. And there's a whole number of factors that have been brought up, and I think we need to chip away at it, because I think the time's come up. I think we're just tired of it, aren't you? I'm tired of it. We want better for our children. I mean, we can't just say it. I mean, we really do. And if it's something within our power, which it is, I mean, if we need to restructure and redesign, then let's do it. Thank you. Have a good weekend. Thank you for coming. Appreciate your time. I know you've all been here for a while.
Thank you, Senator Brown. Yes, we have all been here for about 5 hours. I'm very humbled by the overwhelming number of people who came to share their testimony. And just a little note on the PTOs. You've been going around to the schools, and I got to say, I think there's been an increase in parental participation across schools. And again, I believe that's because people are stepping up where government is falling short. So I really appreciate that. Just a couple things on the GW gym, ma'am. I'm probably not supposed to say this, but they were close to sealing that deal, and there was some, I believe, some collusion and funny business with a couple of the bidders they had awarded. They were about to award the project to. So I know that last time we spoke with GDOE, they put it out to bid again, hopefully for the last time. And so we'll be on that. I also want to share with you guys that the GDOE board leadership and the acting superintendent, Judy Wampat, they have committed to come down here once a month. I have to tell you, I asked for bi-weekly, but Judy said, Lana, how am I going to get all these things done if I have to come down to the legislature every 5 minutes? But, you know, she's been here 4 times in the 5 weeks that she's been on the job. So I really feel like we're, at the very least, on the same page in terms of engaging and talking about what we need to do. I know a lot of the testimony here today centered around how we're complacent, and I think that after the pandemic, a lot of us got fired up, right? It reminds me of the potholes on the road, the bumps on the road. You know, you might drive by a bump or a pothole, you hit it, the next day you hit it. Pretty soon you don't even realize you're dodging it. Maybe sometimes you're hitting it, you don't even feel it anymore. Mr. Rasmussen, you had said that there's flooding at Price Elementary, and you had said, oh, I'm surprised no one has ever slipped and cracked their head, and I think it's because they're used to it, right? And so I just think that I'm very happy that we have stopped being used to it, and that we are just fired up to make these changes. Again, I'm excited that the speaker has granted my request for an emergency session. We're going into session. I believe that some of these measures are really going to address a lot of the things that you had mentioned, ma'am. We've got, we're going to be addressing the procurement. We're going to be addressing the funding, which I believe will allow GDOE to recruit more custodians. If they want to recruit them above step, then they'd be able to do that. And we're also going to address the health and safety situation in our schools with Bill 29. So I'm very humbled that the speaker has granted that request, and I'm excited for Monday for a change. I also want to let you guys know that, yes, there are many other issues in the public school system that we need to address. I'm scheduling for April. There were some travel issues with the superintendent for special education, but we're going to convene a special education roundtable in April. We're also going to convene a roundtable on vaping, which I hear is, well, I don't hear, is that's the #1 disciplinary infraction in the public schools, above bullying. And so I think that we need to sit down and address this this issue. I mean, when GDOE leadership is telling me that they're finding vape in elementary school, and I think that we've really got to do something about that. And so I don't want to take up any more of your time, but this has been a blast. I'm just, again, all hands on deck, and I'm very glad that you guys are on this good ship with us as we continue to sail forward, right? So again, thank you guys. Biba Guam, Biba Betnes.